Okay, and the other reminder is to please mute your phones. You can mute using a *6 and unmute using a *7. All right. And if Jeff is not on, and *7 if you just muted yourself.
Cindy, he is on.
Oh.
This is Jeff. I'm on. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Great. Okay, so why don't you get started? Jeff Eisman from the Pennsylvania Statewide Independent Living Council. I know you have to get going to another meeting. So Jeff wanted to talk to us about home modification programs and a bill, landlord-tenant bill. Jeff? Or if you don't, well, you talk about what you want to, and I'll fill in.
Yeah, the two issues were the landlord-tenant bill. It's House Bill 975. It's Representative Malin Dean's bill, and basically that was legislation. I think we've discussed it a couple times. It would be for folks with disabilities and seniors who basically the landlord doesn't. What's the word? They will not honor the. They should honor the request for accommodations. They have to go back, not accommodations, but they have to go back and forth, like between the nursing home and they're in and out of the hospital. Sometimes there's not. Some landlords haven't done that in terms of just allowing the person to return home. And I talked to Representative Dean. She was at an event I was at, and the bill is basically was inspired by a constituent in her district that had that issue. And she said she realizes that most landlords do, as a practice, they're usually pretty fair with their tenants, and if somebody has to go in and out of the hospital or a nursing home, they're usually willing to accommodate the issue. But I guess someone in Montgomery County, it's part of her district, the landlord wasn't really willing to do that. So that was the impetus behind House Bill 975. It has passed out of the House Urban Affairs Committee back in April 13th, and it hasn't gotten a House vote yet. It's been on the calendar for a bit, so we'll see what happens with it. She seems confident that it could move forward. They do list assisted living and continuing care provider.
Something, Joyce? Okay. Mute. And Jeff, I think the bill also specifically says that a tenant who needs to go into long-term care can terminate a lease. Is that?
They can terminate a lease within 6 months. Actually, it can't be. So it basically can really it says nothing. Basically, they can. Correct. So.
Okay.
But we will.
So that's tabled, but she feels like it's going to move?
Yeah, she feels like it's going to move. She didn't see any other problems with it. And the language is pretty specific that it has to be someone that meets the disability and the senior criteria status. So but we'll see where that goes. She did acknowledge the other bill that she has that deals with domestic violence has been a little more controversial and didn't seem as confident on that, and I'm drawing a blank on that bill number.
Right. I was going to mention that House Bill 1051, and I know that was amended. It was scheduled for committee the same time 975 was, but was held back while they negotiated an amendment. It was amended. I think that the domestic violence advocates, Abby wasn't able to get on the call today, are not thrilled but satisfied with the amendment, willing to support the bill, but the bill has been tabled. So hopefully we'll see both of them move. And that bill also, a similar sort of thing, allowing a victim of domestic violence to terminate a lease. Right.
So, and the other thing I wanted to mention, and I know there were a number of folks that get on this call, the Housing Alliance, SDHP, and several others came to the release of the governor's housing plan, which a lot of us have been waiting for, which was think it was the last Monday in May before Memorial Day weekend. So, and it's out on the DHS website for folks that want to look at it. And from looking at it, there's really nothing in there as far as new money. I think it's a better, I mean, everyone obviously hopes for new money in the future, but it's basically a better use of existing resources, and I guess a way to focus for more collaboration between the departments of DHS, aging, corrections, DCED, PHFA, anyone that has a role in housing for human services population, be it domestic violence, disabilities, just about anything that falls under DHS's department. So,
Cindy, can I add something here?
Sure, Joyce, go ahead.
Go for it.
Thanks, Jeff. It's Joyce from the Housing Alliance. It just is a follow-up to what Jeff mentioned. DHS, Ben Loudermilk, and I'm not sure if Secretary Dallas is going to get on the phone, but we're doing a webinar in July, and I was just going to try and pull up the date on the DHS housing strategy plan. So I'll look forward to getting the full skinny on that in July, and we'll be sending out an invite. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Joyce. And let me see, I was just going to look also, but yeah, I think that it's really worthwhile. It's a great step forward that we've got a plan from not only from DHS, but the collaboration that they did with other folks around, with other departments. Friday, July 15th.
And the other thing we hope to do, and I think we may get to this on Cindy's call at the end, is talk about the HR 550, the plan around preventing and ending homelessness, and trying to make all these plans speak and work together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, stay on the call, Joyce. We'll talk about Home Matters Day.
Okay.
Anything else, Jeff?
Yeah, briefly, you mentioned Home Mods Broker. We haven't seen the final approval yet from the Department of Human Services and what's going to be done with that. I think it's actually the procurements for DGS, General Services, are the ones that put out the RFP. And
excuse me, back up a minute, back up a little. Haven't seen the final plan on tell us more what you're.
In terms of who's getting the who's going to be approved for it, and how many providers they have.
To provide home modification services, is that what you're
Correct.
saying?
Yeah. So we haven't seen a final yet on. I know a number of organizations have made bids on it, but I don't think the organizations that submitted. The state hasn't chosen who's going to get the contracts yet. I think if it's like the home choices or the proposed community health choices, you'll have at least 2 in each region, but it might be, but there's no guarantees of that. It could be 1 or 2. I think you'll have at least. I think a lot of us hope it's going to be maybe 2 per region to give people some choices in case one provider doesn't do a good job. People have other choices and just under choices, but that's not a given. And the other issue I wanted to mention was community health choices, which is the managed long-term care for folks with disabilities and seniors. DHS took the final comments as of May 23rd. They will be announcing providers who the managed care organizations are that will be awarded to contracts. It looks like it'll be July 1. It may wind up being after July 4th at this point. So there are 14 organizations that went for it. A number of them are the same managed care organizations that do health choices currently. There are a few others from out of state. Some of you may be familiar with Centene. They do managed long-term care in other states, and I think their name in Pennsylvania is PA Health and Wellness. There are also a couple, Molina Healthcare, which is doing managed long-term care in other states, and I think there may be one others, but we'll know more about that. And as far as the housing aspect, the managed care organizations are to work with consumers in terms of helping to coordinate housing options, particularly if you have someone that needs like a home modification. Maybe they'll help direct them or work with other organizations through like supports coordination, things like that. There's still a lot of pieces that aren't finalized yet, and so we'll have to wait and see what goes to CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, and also what Pennsylvania gets back from CMS. Usually we submit the final contract, the final version to CMS. They basically say we want X, Y, and Z. We like this, we don't like that, and make adjustments. And this all has to be ready to run. It'll start in January 2017, but from the southwest part of the state. The southeast, it starts in January 2018, and the rest of the state gets it in January 2019. But I think they have to be ready basically come in September, basically for letting consumers know what the changes in managed care for the Southwest and just being able to roll it out. So that's where we're at on that.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have questions for Jeff? Star 7 to unmute your line.
Hi, Jeff Fields with Self-Determination Housing. Jeff, I wanted to check with you about when I had spoken with Madeline Dean about the HB 975, she thought it could be a concern about getting the bill onto the calendar. Did she express that to you at all, or? She
did not. So she didn't say that there was any holdups with leadership. And
okay.
Since we don't know, since it hasn't gotten out of the House yet, and I haven't talked to anybody else in leadership about it, I could check for our next call if it hasn't moved out of the House. And, of course, the Senate may have a different perspective on it. I don't know what their perspective is on this bill.
And what about what was the problem that advocates had with HB 1051? My understanding was that the amendment, the Ross amendment that came on after it restored a lot of the things that were initially taken out of it, as far as including sexual assault and stalking, allowing it to not just require, the main thing was allowing it to other types of documentation besides just the protection order, like police records and court documents, to be allowed to be used to allow for someone to get out of the lease. I think that was like the major issue, and I thought that was put back in. Is there still problems with it that we should be advocating for? Because someone mentioned something about domestic violence groups not being happy with the bill as it is. I thought that had to be fixed.
I'll have to defer. I'll have to pass on that. I'll pass that over to Cindy or someone else.
Yeah, I did talk to Abby, and if I said they weren't happy with it, I overstated. That basically there were some things that they were hoping for that were not included.
Oh, okay.
My note says it still requires a protection from abuse order if the perpetrator is on the lease. So in order to terminate the lease, they need to get a protection from abuse order, which I understand can be problematic for the victim in ways. Sometimes the victim just wants to get out and move away and not go through the process of going to court, which can further anger the perpetrator.
No, but I think that was the old amendment. I mean, that at least my understanding of the A07160 that I thought passed unchanged was that the victim can be released from the lease if they provide written notice to the landlord and one of either a copy of a valid court order, police reports, medical records, court documents, evidence the perpetrator has been convicted of abuse. Like there's multiple. What you're talking about was the First Amendment that we then fought to have modified, I think. So.
Okay, well, you seem to be more up on it than I am, Jeff, and I'm happy to have your input. Let me see what else my notes say. Okay, the idea that the tenant is required to pay for changing the lock and for rekeying a master lock system. But basically, they're supporting the bill. So they're supporting the bill as amended.
Okay, we did do like a phone call campaign to get some of those provisions put back into the bill here in Montgomery County. So if there's, I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page, because I had gotten like a thank you that they, at least about the protection from abuse thing that we got that changed. So I just want to make sure that is that you, Cindy? That I'll forward this on to you so you can see. Okay.
Thank you. No, definitely. If you have any more information, please feel free to share with us now, or as things progress.
Hey, Cindy, I have to get off the call, so.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Bye. All right. And did anyone else have questions about either of the landlord-tenant bills, Madeline Dean bills? Okay. Let's move on to Kerry Smith from Community Legal Services, who has spoken with us before as this perennial issue keeps popping up of payday lending under a variety of different names, short-term lending and whatever. So, Kerry, why don't you just take it from here?
Sure. Thank you, Cindy, and thanks, everyone, for having me on the call. I just wanted to provide a brief overview of what's been going on. The issue of payday lending has gotten quite a bit of national and local attention over the past week because last Thursday, at a field hearing in Kansas City, Missouri, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, issued the first ever proposed national rule on payday lending and car title lending, which is the rule is designed to rein in some of the most predatory lending practices that occur in states where they're legal. And I wanted to provide a brief overview of the rule and its potential impact on Pennsylvania, including the fact that it may potentially provide some unwarranted ammunition to the payday lenders' efforts to legalize their loans in the state. Before I do it, just to provide some context, we are pretty fortunate to be in Pennsylvania, which has one of the strongest laws in the country to guard against predatory lending, with a strict cap on the interest and fees that lenders can charge for consumer loans. Again, we don't ban payday lending, but that cap has effectively kept the high-cost payday lenders out of Pennsylvania, and our law has been pretty effectively enforced against payday lenders who have tried but failed to find loopholes in our law, whether it's through storefront lending in our communities or by operating online. So as a result, many Pennsylvanians don't really understand and are not familiar with the kind of harms that payday lending can bring. What that involves is, these are loans that have kind of a toxic combination of very, very high fees and interest, so typically 200 to 300% annually, and then also extraordinary leverage as the lender who makes these loans obtains access to the borrower's bank account. So the lender can make sure that it's going to get paid back first on the borrower's payday or the day that the borrower gets Social Security or other benefits into their bank account, leaving the borrower short to cover other living expenses. And we know from states where this is legal that payday loans cause people to fall behind on other bills, including their rent and mortgage, which is, I know, one of the reasons why the Housing Alliance has been involved in this fight to keep our law strong. And also it causes people to overdraft and eventually lose their bank accounts and even file for bankruptcy. In other words, it would undermine a lot of the work that many of us are doing to ensure stability for Pennsylvania residents. Over the last few years, payday lenders have been sort of aggressively and relentlessly trying to legalize their loans in Pennsylvania, but we've been working to counter that and so far have kept our protections in place. And just to larger context, Pennsylvania residents then are among the 90 million Americans, so it's about a third of the country that does not have high-cost payday lending. But many states do, and the CFPB was trying to figure out how to address the payday lending abuses that happen in states where it's legal. They unfortunately have one hand tied behind their backs as they're trying to do that because they do not have the authority to issue a nationwide cap on fees and interest on these loans. That's really unfortunate because obviously the best way to protect people against high-cost loans is to lower the cost. They don't have that tool in their toolbox. So, but the rule that they're proposing could go a long way in stopping abusive lending nationwide. Sort of at its core is a good foundation. It would require lenders to make sure that a borrower has the ability to repay the loan, taking into account both their income and expenses without having to reborrow. So that's sort of the hallmark of responsible lending, and that is sort of the core of the CFPB proposal. So that's a good thing and is a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, the proposed rule also has some exceptions from that ability to repay standard, that in states where payday lending or car title lending, which is another form of predatory lending, in states where that's legal, lenders would not have to ensure that a borrower has the ability to repay every loan. They could make up to 3 back-to-back payday loans, for example, to a borrower, and up to 6 a year. There's not enough limitations on sort of repeat refinancing where people get flipped over and over again in these high-cost abusive loans. What does that mean for Pennsylvania? Well, I mean, the good news is that this proposed federal rule is a floor, and the CFPB was very clear that Pennsylvania's law will not be preempted or superseded by this proposed rule. They see our state interest rates caps as providing stronger protections to our residents, and if we have a stronger state law, that law applies. We don't have to worry about the federal rule preempting us. So that's good. But what we're concerned about is that any exceptions to the ability to repay standard that they've outlined kind of give some unwarranted legitimacy to predatory lending practices. And in fact, we're already seeing the payday lenders try to use the proposed rule to leverage their way into Pennsylvania. I like to say they're kind of like trying to use the rule as a Trojan horse to, get into our state unsuspectingly and then legalize their loans. There's not a bill yet filed in Pennsylvania, but there is a co-sponsorship memo that has circulated by a state senator who has co-sponsored the payday lenders legalization bills in prior sessions. And the proposal, the co-sponsorship memo claims that the legislation will be based on the CFPB rule and will make that the law in Pennsylvania to bring a new credit product in here. Unfortunately, what it doesn't say is that the CFPB, as I already mentioned, does not have the ability to cap the rates on these loans. So if we replace Pennsylvania's interest rate cap with the CFPB rule, we'll actually be weakening our law and legalizing payday lending in our state. So we are sort of being very vigilant and watching any movement. Again, the bill has not yet been filed, but there is a draft bill that's been circulated that we've reviewed. It would legalize a long-term payday loan product. I think these are like sort of traditional payday loans on steroids with no maximum cap on the kind of fees that a lender could charge a borrower. So we're monitoring that, and it would be very helpful for everyone to reach out to your legislators and encourage them not to co-sponsor any bill that would legalize or long-term payday loans or undermine our usury protections. And we also will be doing some work to get the CFPB to strengthen their rule at the national level. So thank you all for being part of the coalition. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone might have.
Thank you, Carrie. And again, *7 to unmute your lines. People have questions for Carrie? I know, I guess, Carrie, as you pointed out, people may not be all that familiar with payday lending because it is illegal, but I'm sure that a lot of the folks that people on the call work with would be prime targets. I know that we've talked in the past about not just lower income communities where storefronts used to be prevalent before they were shut down, but how people on Social Security are targeted, veterans sometimes. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, about
Sure.
who falls prey?
Yeah, I mean the average payday borrower in states where they're legal makes under $25,000 a year. So you only to be a target of a payday loan product, you just have to have an income stream from anywhere. So that could be SSI or veterans benefits. In fact, those individuals are often the targets of predatory lenders and a bank account. And given that kind of low income and the financial stress that those individuals are already under, a high cost 300% interest rate loan just creates sort of a debt spiral and just brings about even more financial harm. I was actually in Kansas City last week at the field hearing, and there were like 1,500 people there, many of whom had driven from states that have payday loans to bring their stories, and they were really, really heartbreaking. And because I had testified, some people saw me afterwards and came up to me and started telling me their stories, and including people being evicted because they were trapped in a payday loan debt cycle, very low income individuals. And if anything, it really energized me to keep fighting to keep this kind of plague out of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Carrie. I'll ask once more. Anybody have questions?
Yeah, hi. This is Ellen Koslowski from Community Advocates of Montgomery County. Karen, could you repeat again what we're supposed to tell our legislators?
Absolutely.
To keep it out?
Sure. And just if anyone needs some additional background, our coalition did put up a website, stopppaydayloanspa.com, that has additional background information, including fact sheets that you can download. It does need to be updated, and will be later today with the CFPB rule, but that's a source for you. Right now there is no bill. But there is draft legislation that is being circulated. It's being circulated by Senator Utechak, who is a Democrat from Luzerne and Carbon County. He has co-sponsored the payday lenders bills in prior sessions. And so what I would urge you to do is reach out to your legislators and make sure that they understand that this is a bill that would legalize high-cost lending, and urge them not to co-sponsor it. It is called the Financial Credit Ladder, is what they're calling it. Every year the payday lenders sort of rebrand what they're trying to bring into Pennsylvania.
Carrie, this is Joyce from the Housing Alliance. Do you have a letter that you send out or that we could send to folks on the phone to make it a little easier? Or
Absolutely, yeah. I can pull together a sample that others have used and send that out if you could push that out to the group.
That'd be great. And I'm picturing an infographic with somebody falling down a ladder into the hole.
Yeah, it's sort of an ironic, the Financial Services Credit Ladder, because I think it's funny that they picked that name because, ladders work both ways. And
that's right.
I think with payday lending, it's not going to raise people up the financial stability ladder, but actually push them down the ladder.
Thanks, Carrie. I know you've been a frequent guest sharing great information, and we'll certainly keep in touch as things progress or hopefully don't progress in this area. But that's thanks to your advocacy and your vigilance. All right. We also have on the agenda, I put state budget. Don't have much to tell you. It is, after all, only June 8th, right? So we still have 3 weeks, 22 days left in the fiscal year. Things have been pretty quiet in the Capitol so far as what I've heard about the budget. I've read a few articles. Most recently today, read that Representative Reed, who's the majority leader in the House, did indicate that they have been talking to Democratic leadership, which is definitely a positive step. and trying to work out a budget. I have heard that while leadership is only starting to get engaged in conversation, staff has been working that is, leadership staff has been working for the past few months. So hopefully we will avoid a protracted budget debate. Also saw that yesterday the House passed, I guess the Senate had already passed, a liquor modernization bill, not privatization, but one that would allow for wine to be sold in grocery stores and beer to be sold in convenience stores, and opening up hours of sale and other provisions to allowing for shipment of cases of wine from out of state. So that was a compromise proposal, not everything that the Republicans, who of course have the majority in both houses, wanted in terms of privatization, but something that they got strong bipartisan agreement, not unanimity, but bipartisan agreement. And that went to Governor Wolf's desk yesterday. He has not acted on it yet or made a statement. He's considering it. And I mentioned the liquor bill in this conversation because last year there were really three items that were part of the negotiations. There was the budget and everything that goes along with that, but there was also pension reform and liquor privatization / modernization. And by some counts, it was really the liquor bill that derailed things. So it's good news that this liquor compromise has made it to the governor's desk. It's good news that they're talking to each other, but we haven't seen anything yet and haven't seen any new numbers. The budget bill that was introduced in the House, I guess about 2 months ago now, really was just a repeat of this year's budget. Now, they put it out as a placeholder. Those things can change, although last year they didn't really. They did the same thing. They put out a bill that was basically the previous year's budget, and ultimately, at least for our programs, that's what ended up being passed. So we're still stable, sort of operating on the budget numbers from, let me see, we're in 15-16, so from 14-15, which are not good numbers. Of course, there's, as I've said before, there's very little housing money in the state budget anyway, and we'd like to see that increased. We've basically been following the homeless assistance line item, the Human Services Development Fund, and Keystone Communities over at DCED. Keystone Communities is a combination of programs. Back in the 10-11 budget, I believe it was, or maybe it was 11-12, there were basically three line items that were rolled into this. There was the Housing and Redevelopment Assistance Program, which was the only state money that went to community development and new or rehab affordable housing. That line item was eliminated to the extent that DCED has a little bit of money. They do invest what they can. But the other line items that went into Keystone Communities were the New Communities Program, and that covers Elm Street, Main Street, KOZ, Keystone Opportunity Zone programs, and a home modification program, a little different than the one that what Jeff was describing, called Accessible Housing, which at one point had been a $3 million line item, then a $1 million line item, and then rolled into Keystone Communities. So a very tiny program. Before those line items were merged, we were at a total of $28 million for the three programs, and even that was down from previous years. This current year, Keystone Communities is at $6 million, and most of it is the Elm Street, Main Street programs. So there's really very little that's going elsewhere for, I think home modifications is still getting its $1 million. Of course, we do have, Housing Trust Fund is not actually a budget line item. I can talk a little bit about that. But so this ties into the Home Matters Day Advocacy Day that we're holding June 15th. Joyce had mentioned earlier the H.R. 550, House Resolution 550 report, H.R. 550 of 2014, was a resolution that established a bipartisan task force in the House on homelessness. First time there had ever been a task force on homelessness. And the resolution also directed the Joint State Government Commission to do a report and to convene an advisory committee, which they did. The advisory committee was phenomenal. The work that the Joint State Government Commission did was phenomenal. They put out a 220-some page report on the causes and impacts of homelessness and made extensive recommendations, many of which have to do with coordination, better tracking systems, data collection, but some of which have to do with increasing availability of affordable housing, resources, and maybe, I'm not sure that I can say most importantly, but something, a primary recommendation that we're favoring is reconstituting and strengthening the Pennsylvania Interagency Council to End Homelessness, making that a cabinet-level position, appointing a full-time director to better coordinate between and among the various agencies. And so this is tomorrow, Joyce. We're doing a webinar on the report. Is that if you're still on?
Yep, I just unmuted. Okay. Yep, we are. It's at noon tomorrow.
And so you can go to our website and sign up for that. You'll find the link on the home page. And on the 15th, we've got a really cool press conference lined up that I'll let Joyce talk to you a little bit about. And we're also doing legislative visits to recommend the adoption of some of the recommendations in the report, as well as increasing the line items that I just mentioned. Joyce, do you want to talk a little bit about Home Matters Day?
Yeah, it'd be great. We're going to start around at 10. We'll be in the rotunda around 9:30 with packets. There is a link. I'll make sure it's on the website, but if anyone's interested, you can call or email Cindy or I, and we can get you on the list. So we'll do visits before the event in the rotunda. We have our new executive director, Phyllis Chamberlain, joined us on Monday, and she'll be leading the charge. We have 3 individuals with lived experience who are going to talk about their path to success and how the support they received in their communities helped them work their way out of homelessness. We have Sandy Strauss from the Council of Churches, and then Diana T. Myers from Diana T. Myers and Associates. She was the chair of H.R. 550, and she's going to talk about the findings and recommendations. And then we'll have lunch and then do some visits after. We're hoping people will go to, the plan will be to have folks go to their own state rep and state senator. We have leave behind packets. Our biggest push is to, and we do have a scheduled meeting with leadership in the House and the Senate, and also with the governor's policy office. Our push is really to try and get the governor on board with making a statement about addressing homelessness in Pennsylvania, having a real plan, putting some effort on the state level. I think we mentioned there's a very cool housing strategy that was just released, but putting some effort into coordinating all of the different agencies, of which, as Cindy said, most of them touch on homelessness and housing. So really pushing the governor to put some of his power and effort and energy of the administration behind working on this.
Thanks.
I have a quick question. What's the HR number again? I couldn't hear it.
550, but it's of 2014. Not
okay. That's why I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And, Joyce, how do people sign up if they're interested in participating?
There's a link. I'll make sure it's on our website, but you could just email me at joyce@housingalliancepa.org. It was in our newsletter the other day, I think, or you go to our website and sign up that way.
Thanks. So I just want to emphasize a couple of things that Joyce mentioned, or maybe I mentioned. And in terms of coordination among the state agencies, and really I think the first step has to be to get this on people's radar, to make a commitment, Joyce said, to get the governor to make a statement. We would like an executive order from the governor stating that Pennsylvania is prioritizing ending homelessness as a key policy issue and directing agencies to work together. That we want a commitment. First and foremost, we want a commitment from the legislature and from the administration that this is going to be a top priority issue for them. Give you a little example of what various departments are doing, and I think that there's probably a connection with just about every department, whether it's Department of Corrections or certainly DHS, DCD. They're into the homelessness thing, or aging, or health, or maybe even agriculture. I don't know. Department of Human Services recently came out with the report that Jeff had mentioned and Joyce mentioned, and they worked very well with DCED and PHFA at taking a look at their various programs. Department of Aging has its draft 4-year plan out right now, and it doesn't mention housing, despite the fact that the percentage of senior citizens who are homeless is increasing. It doesn't mention housing at all, and DHS didn't know that Aging was doing a report. Aging, of course, didn't talk to anybody else. So we want an interagency council at the cabinet level that can convene the departments and start coordinating all of these various programs. Because after all, as we all know, the people who are receiving help or needing help, they're the same people who go from one department to the next, one program to the next. But in the departments, they're not seeing these as holistic people, but rather as a recipient of a particular program. So we really, even more than a legislative initiative, we want to get it in front of the legislators and the administration. We want them talking about homelessness. We want them to understand that it's a solvable problem. We have a lot of good information right now that there's a lot of momentum around the country and around the state as communities check off the box that we have ended veterans' homelessness in our community. And because there has been a concerted push to end veterans' homelessness and or have a system in place, we know that there will always be people who are homeless for one reason or another, but the idea is to make their experience rare, brief, and non-recurring, to get people from homelessness into permanent housing very quickly. So we have a number of communities in the state that have ended veterans' homelessness. We know it can be done. We have great models of housing first, getting chronically homeless people into permanent housing, saving the government money. A lot of good work being done. We're really excited to have Phyllis Chamberlain as our new director, who has a strong background in advocating for homeless folks. And so we think this is the time with the report to go around and get this on everybody's radar screen, and would love your participation.
I have one more thing to add. For folks who can't make the trek to Harrisburg, the governor has 5 regional offices, so after next Wednesday we will start to plan those regional meetings, and we'll let people know about them. So if you can't do next Wednesday, we'll let you know about those.
Thanks, Joyce. Yeah,
yep.
I know I was rambling there for a while. Anyone else have comments or questions about the homelessness report or Home Matters Day?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, this is Caroline Dunleavy from Episcopal Community Services in Philadelphia.
Hi.
I'm a little new to this, to advocacy. We are, I believe I've mentioned before, we're setting up a new advocacy department here at ECF. Could you just tell me what the official name of the report is again?
I think that I can. Joyce, I don't know if you have it in front of you. I gave away my hard copy.
I don't, but I can send you some information if you just give me your email, or you email me at joyce@housingalliancepa.org.
Sure.
And we should have the report linked on our website. I'm hoping.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I can find it then. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
I think it's called Homelessness in Pennsylvania, Causes, Impacts, and Recommendations.
Okay, great. Thank
and
you.
I know it's also on the Joint State Government Commission report, which I believe is Joint State Government, JSGC.legis for legislature .pa.us. Is that I think I've got that right. You could Google Joint State Government Commission, Pennsylvania, and come up with it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? All right. Any comments on anything else that you're working on? Any issues that you've seen that you'd like to bring to our attention? Star 7 to unmute.
Hi, this is Chuck Scully speaking, and I faded for a moment. I had to leave my office and came back. With respect to the state budget and DCED, is there any status on the NAP program going forward? And is that going to be funded, Neighborhood Assistance Tax Credit Program?
NAP, so I think the short answer is yes, it will be funded as far as I know. NAP as a tax credit program is actually not in the budget. Tax credits are revenue laws, and it's as long as it stays on the books, is there, that DEC is allowed to approve up to $18 million in tax credits. In order to change that, I know a few years back it was reduced to $9 million. There has to be an amendment to the revenue code. I have not heard anything along those lines. There are several bills floating around to do various things with NAP to increase the amount of money, and I saw one bill with that that would basically double the amount of NAP, but that was amended to take that language out. Another bill to add $3 million for veterans housing, but none of those bills have moved very much. So I'm keeping an eye on those bills, but I think that we're going to see a continuation of the same program.
Okay. Thanks, Cindy.
Yeah. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you all for getting on. We will talk to you again in July. Hopefully there will be a state budget that we can talk about, and we'll keep you up to date on what else is happening. Thanks.
When's July?
July would be, let's see, the second Wednesday. Let me put on my glasses here. That would be the 13th of July.
Okay, thanks. I want to make sure I got it in my calendar.
Good. And we always use the same phone number, so if you just copy the days and paste it in as a recurring. We usually don't do an August call, but other than that, the second Wednesday.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.